chapter 10, these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Magdi, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. Okay, so we're going to go through some of these names very quickly. Japheth means opened. Gomer means complete, and this is not Hosea's wife. This is a different Gomer. Magog means land of Gog. Madai means middle land. Middle land, some of these names help understand their geographical location. Javan is where we get Greece or Iona. Tubal means thou shalt be brought, and it sounds like Tubal Cain in chapter 4. Meshech means drawing out. Tiras means desire. Okay. Of Gomer's sons, Ashkenaz means a man sprinkled or fire as scattered. Riphath means spoken. Togarmah means thou wilt break her, which is kind of eerie to me. Thou wilt break her. Okay. Verse 4 and 5. The sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Ketim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland peoples spread in their lands, each with his own language by their clans and their nations. Okay, so Javan's sons are Elisha, God of the coming one. Tarshish means yellow jasper. Jasper is a type of stone. This is also where Jonah tried to flee away from God, Tarshish. Kittim means bruisers. Dodanium means leaders. Okay, just really quickly. Verse 6, the sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteka. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. And I'm sure I'm butchering a lot of these names. Ham means hot. Cush means black. Egypt means land of the Copts. Put means a bow. Canaan means lowland. Okay. Saba means drink thou. Havilah means circle. Sabta means striking. Ramah means horse's mane. Sebteka means striking. Okay, and then Ramah's sons, Sheba means seven or an oath. Dedan means low country. Okay, sorry, I know that's kind of boring to go through all the names. Do you want to keep going through all the names? We don't have to. Faster. Okay, well, I'll go. Let me just go through the interesting ones because. Okay, we don't have to go through all, but Nimrod's important, right? Nimrod, chapter 8. Nimrod gets special attention, and a lot of this is repeated in 1 Chronicles 1:10. Nimrod's name means rebellion or the valiant, and he's kind of rebellious. He reminds me of Lamech in chapter 4. Okay, verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. No one says that today, but they did in the time of Moses. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Okay, so has anybody heard of Nimrod before? Nimrod? So outside of Jewish and Christian writings, Nimrod is mentioned by Josephus, writing for the Romans. Early Gnostic writings, Syriac writings, Ethiopic writings, Hungarian writings, and Muslim writings. In many Islamic and Jewish traditions, Nimrod represents evil, and Abraham represents good, and they battle each other. Okay, and many Freemasons often attribute Nimrod to be their first member. So because he built Babel and everything. All right. Nimrod also might be mentioned as the first Babylonian king after the flood. This is mentioned by Berossus. Berossus was a Babylonian historian writing centuries before Christ. And he mentions a Babylonian king after the flood, and they have a name, and the name is not specifically Nimrod, but some people think that he's actually talking about Nimrod. And his Berossa's writings have been preserved through the Christian historian Eusebius, which we'll be talking a lot today. Okay. Nimrod's kingdom, the land of Nimrod, is also mentioned in Micah 5:6. Babel means confusion by mixing. It also might be where we get the kingdom Babylon, although some scholars disagree that they're actually connected. Okay, let me just go through. I'm going to skip a lot of these names. These are some of the cities around that area. Some people think that the cities Erech, Akkad, and Calneh are Babylonian cities. Okay. Verse 11, 12, 13, 14. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Ir, Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calai. That is the great city. Egypt fathered Ludim, Anemim, Lahabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorium. Did I get all those right, Vidar? Close enough.
I'm not sure. Hebrew is not my native tongue.
Well, in that case, I said it perfectly. I'm just going to say. Okay, so obviously we all remember Nineveh, right? That's where Jonah preached. Let's see here. Let's just go through some of these that are. Rezin gets special attention because it's for being the great city. Okay, obviously we know where Egypt went, right? We went to Egypt. Let's see. Casluhim is where we get the Philistines. It means fortified. I'm gonna skip through a lot of these names. Okay, verse 15 through 18. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites, and the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites were dispersed. Okay, and this might have been at the Tower of Babel. Okay, let's see. Are there any interesting? Okay, we're just going to skip all the names. And the territory of Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, and in the direction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. Okay, so that's where it looked like. Okay, it's a map. A picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Gaza here, the same Gaza.
Yeah, this is Israel. So, so obviously, when after the Torah, Joshua, the Israelites conquer this land, but it's Canaanite territory at this point. Okay. All right, 21 through 24. To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth. Children were born, the sons of Shem, Elam, Assur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. Okay, let's see. Elam means eternity. Asar is where we get the Assyrians. Arpachshad, that's my favorite. That's my favorite term because it literally means, "I shall fail as the breast. He cursed the breast bottle." So, and so I don't know what the description doesn't really help me at all. Aram, it might be where we get the Syrians. Okay. Let's see here. Just skipping. 25. To Eber were born two sons. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Almada, Shelef, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Dikla, Oba, Abimael, Sheba. Okay, so why was Peleg named Peleg, which means division? Why was that? Who knows?
Probably has something to do with the battle.
Probably the Tower of Babel. So languages were confused, and then there was the division, probably. Although that's not specifically mentioned. Okay, let's see. Any names that are interesting? Abimael means my father is El, or God. Ophir means reducing to ashes, and it's apparently connected to a land in southern Arabia famous for gold trade. Okay, and so Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab, all of these were the sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Zifar to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. Okay, another picture is worth. Well, these are the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies and their lands, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood. Okay, and so a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And we could have gotten much deeper into the details of these people, but by everyone's reaction, I think probably we could have gotten into less detail. So who do you think of Noah's sons had the best and worst descendants? Who do you think? Who had the best descendants? Who had the worst? Just look at the map. So in purple, well, Japheth's sons are green, and they went north, obviously. Ham's descendants and Shem's descendants, they went south. Shem more or less went southeast, and Ham more or less went southwest. Okay, who do you think had the best or worst descendants? What do you think? Who had the worst descendants? Yeah, definitely Ham. Ham had the worst descendants. Why? What was wrong with his descendants? What's one problem? Noah cursed him, but of his children, what were some of his naughty children? So one of them starts with the C. Canaanites, right? Canaanites. So Noah actually cursed Canaan. So, and we know of the group, they were among the worst. Now all these people became pagans eventually, but Canaan much faster, really bad, and God actually judges them using the Israelite people in Joshua. Who else? Not just Canaanites, though. Who else? And by the way, the Canaanites include Sodom and Gomorrah, right? But also Cush fathered who? Nim. Starts with Nim. What? Nimrod. Nimrod founded Babel. So something is going on with Ham, right? Ham, obviously not a good leader for his family, not a good father, and so he has the worst descendants. And you can debate of the other two brothers who had the best, but Ham definitely has the worst descendants of the other two brothers, right? What do you think? Sodom, Gomorrah, Babel, Nimrod, Canaan. And you can see why Noah makes the curse on Ham. It's probably not that one incident, but it's probably, this is a lot of things, right? Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this is most of the today will be around 9 verses of Genesis chapter 11. So why don't we, Vidar, why don't you read this page if you don't mind?
Now the whole earth had one language and the same word. As people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land at Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and bitumen for mortar.
Okay, let me ask you a question. What did God command Noah and his sons to do in chapter 9? Chapter 9, verse 1. Yeah.
Then God blessed Noah
Yeah.
and his sons, saying to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth."
Right. Fill the earth, right? And so everyone else is doing that, right? We look at this map right here. Everyone is filling the earth. It might be easier if they stuck together and worked together, but God said, okay, Noah's flood's over. Now you need to fill the earth, repopulate the earth, right? Okay. Is Nimrod doing that? What do you think? Is not Nimrod doing that?
He's doing the opposite.
He's doing the opposite, right? It's easier. It might be easier for him, but he's doing the opposite. By the way, Shinar means country of 2 rivers. So it's probably referring to the Tigris and the Euphrates. Country of 2 rivers. Okay. And they went, which direction did they go? Did they
From the east to the
from the east? So that means what?
west.
And there's actually a debate. There's actually a debate amongst Hebrew scholars. Did he go east or from the east? And most Hebrew scholars say he went from the east, which means he goes west. And we use northeast, southwest, which are cardinal directions. The Israelites used words tied into geographical locations around Israel. So that's so they went from the east, which meant they probably went west, right? Okay. Verse 4, Mickey.
Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we dispersed over the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of man had built.
All right. So, are they obeying God? What do you think? Look at this. So we don't get dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Let's build a city so that we don't do what God told us to do, right? It's like, oh, what a great idea. Well, they're obviously rebelling against God. So Noah's flood didn't fix anything, did it? It didn't correct original sin. Okay, God's not going to drown the world again, not because we're better, but if we're better, it's probably because of the government that God created. But we still suffer from original sin. We're still rebelling against God, right?
But it wasn't like an obvious, like, I feel like they didn't really go obviously against to God's command, but maybe they were just sinning because of their nature. It's like they're not trying to do opposite to what God.
Yeah, they're not. They might not be. They might not be trying to hurt God, but they're just thinking this will be a lot more convenient for us. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
It'll be more convenient for if they just get in the city and they all work together, and more hands, more helping hands, and we'll all work together and we'll build a city. Yeah, I think it's more convenient for them. And what do they also want to do? They say, oh, they want to make a name for themselves, not a name for God, not God's glory. They want to make a name for themselves. So there is a pride element to it too, I think. But these people are noticeably the most rebellious of everyone, I think. Nimrod and the people in him, I think they're obviously the most rebellious, don't you think, of all the other people? Anyway. The city is not dedicated to God, but it's for them. And by the way, how is Nimrod related to Noah? Who knows? How are they related? Noah is his what? Great-grandfather. So, I mean, it's not grandfather, it's great-grandfather. This didn't take very long for this to take place. Now, I think I think it might be a little bit too early for the pagan religion that we think of from the Old Testament to really start. But you can see the rebellion beginning. Okay, and of course this is Noah. This is through Ham's line, Nimrod. Anyway, what does it mean that the tower had its top in the heavens? Top in the heavens. What does that mean? What do you got? What do you think? The tower had its top in the heavens.
In NIV version it says the tower that reaches to the heavens.
Okay. What does that mean then?
I think they can go to heaven by themselves.
Maybe. Maybe. Maybe.
Depend on their own ability,
Maybe.
their own capacity.
That could be. I'm not going to say a lot of things are wrong because 3 words, not a lot of details in 3 words. Noah, he's definitely a male writer. He doesn't like to give a lot of details. We wish, now that we're studying it, we wish he would give more details. That could be what it is. Instead of expanding out to the whole world, they're spending a lot of their effort building a very tall tower. This might be the very beginning of false worship. It might be. Kind of like Romans worshiping the creature rather than the creator. They might be worshiping the creation, not the creator, building it to the heavens. And Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah, and this might be the point when some kind of pagan religion begins. And they might be starting to worship the stars, the sun, moon, sky. When I read historians, Christian historians, Jewish historians, and most other historians, many of them do tie this onto some kind of spiritual something that's not dedicated to the God who drowned the world. So something is going on, probably spiritually, but I don't want to get into specifics because we've only got 3 words and they don't really elaborate any more than that. Where is the Tower of Babel located? That's why you all came today. Where is the Tower of Babel located? Does anybody know? Where is it? Is it in where do you does anybody have any suggestions? Anyway, Babylon. That's the popular place, right? Babylon. They sound similar. Babylon, Babel. So that's actually the first place we're going to look at today, Babylon. I'm going to offer two locations where Babel might have been located today, and because I don't really know, so I'm going to give 2, and I'm going to have some historical evidence to support both places, and you can decide which one you think it is or another one. Okay, by the way, John refers to Rome as what country in Revelation? John refers to Rome as Babylon, as the center of evil. So John is rebuking Rome when the church is being persecuted in Revelation, and he calls them Babylon. That's in Revelation. All right. So this is Babylon. Okay. So Ararat is somewhere up here, and Babylon is down here. And this is one very popular location. And we see the 2 rivers coming in. And so that Shinar could be here because there are 2 rivers right there. Okay. Has anybody seen this before? This is the remaining foundation of Ziggurat Itimenaki. Many historians, in fact, historians who are Christian, Jewish, and people who are secular, believe this was actually the Tower of Babel. And this is people outside the church, which is pretty cool. People outside of Christian, worldly archaeologists, they think that this is the Tower of Babel. Okay. This might be what it looked like at one time. This structure is said to have been destroyed by the Assyrians and then rebuilt under many kings, including, forgive me with the names, Esarhaddon and Nebuchadnezzar. Both are in the Bible. And it was dedicated, the second time when it was rebuilt, it was dedicated to a god named Marduk. Nebuchadnezzar wrote about Itimenaki. He wrote this: a former king built the temple of the seven lights of the earth, but he did not complete its head. Since a remote time, people had abandoned it without order expressing their words. Since that time, earthquakes and lightning had dispersed its sun-dried clay, and the earth of the interior had been scattered in heaps. Okay, that's Nebuchadnezzar's writing. All right. Has anybody seen this before? All right. These are both the same. This is what it looks like if you're. This is called a stele. Not like breaking a commandment, but it's like the tablet stele. And so you can barely see the writing here. So here it's in yellow. So someone outlined everything so you can see it. So many people believe this is Nebuchadnezzar. And this is what the Tower of Babel looked like. It's right here. All right. The stele reads, I made it, the wonder of the people of the world. I raised its top to heaven, made doors for the gates, and I covered it with bitumen and bricks. Okay. Bitumen and bricks. Anyway. Many believe this was Nebuchadnezzar, and it does sound similar to the biblical account. Okay, and similar accounts to this have spread to Mexico, Native Americans in Arizona, and other places. Yeah. All right. So there are also ziggurats all over the world. Ziggurat of Ur in Iraq. This is the Aqar Quf in Iraq. This is Alamite Ziggurat of Dur Antash in Iran. All right. There are also pyramids in Egypt. Of course, everyone knows about these. There are also pyramids in Mexico. This is the Pyramid of the Moon in Mexico. Okay. And then there's the Gopuram Towers in India. So you have similar type of architecture all over the world that might have happened when the languages were confused, but they took the similar architecture with them. All right. And we still build tall buildings today to make a city known. Okay, so everyone wants to compete who has the tallest building. I'm not going to say anything against Taipei 101. I don't want to be like stoned, you know. All right. So, that is the most popular location of the Tower of Babel. What do you think? Are you convinced? Are you convinced of the tower of that location? Well, this is a map. Don't look at that. Look at who's convinced it's this location? Anyone convinced? All right, you guys should play poker because I don't know what you're thinking. All right, so that's the most popular location. The problem is that in verse 2, we talked about earlier, they migrated from the east, or they went west, okay? Itimenaki is south from Ararat. So that's one problem with that view. So there's another view, okay? There's another view that says Babel and Babylon are not the same word. Because Babel means confusion, Babylon means gate of God. So we sometimes this idea is that we confuse two words that are actually different. Okay, so this Ararat is right here, and Babylon is down here, and it's clearly south. And for some reason, this map, I found whatever maps I could use. The compass here is crooked, which is really confusing. I don't know why they did that. Anyway, so, and I'm sorry, some of these maps are like showing ISIS locations. This region is not very safe right now. Let's just say that. There's another possible location of the Tower of Babel west of Ararat. Here you can see what's called the Sinjar Mountains in Iraq, which obviously sound like Shinar in verse 2. Okay. This is what the Sinjar Mountains look like. Okay.
In China
In Iraq.
or Iraq.
Yeah, in Iraq. Okay. It's also, as its name suggests, between the Tigris and the Euphrates. Okay. So Sinjar is right here, and this is the Tigris, and this is the Euphrates. So that's might be where you get the name Shinar. Okay. I got this map from Answers in Genesis. It shows the possible locations of Erech, Akkad, and Kelna, or Kelne, mentioned in Genesis chapter 10:10. So I read an article, and it said that these are the three possible locations of the other cities mentioned along with Babel, and that the Babel Tower might be somewhere here in around the Sinjar Mountains. Okay, and so if that's the true location, then archaeologists have been looking in the wrong locations. Okay, so this is the area where the possible location of the Tower of Babel would look like if this is the location. Of course, they don't know where the tower is now because they don't know. And there are many other places that people have suggested where the Tower of Babel is located. So what does everyone think of those two locations? Does anyone like one more than the other, or do they like a third alternative? All right, let's move on. All right, let's go with Johann, verse 5.
And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built.
All right, so no matter how tall they build the tower, God still has to come down to see it. Okay, I think Moses wrote that intentionally. All right, Mila, could you read verses 6 and 7?
Me?
And the Lord said, Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech.
All right, so God is not going to drown the world again for disobedience, right? Us is another Trinity reference, okay? Let us come down, okay? It's also different to, the people building Babel, they said, let us build a city. And then they said, let us go down and confuse their languages, okay? God will confuse the language so that man will not collectively work collectively together and do anything they want. Confuse the language so that they would what? So they would divide and go out over the world like God had wanted to begin with. So, yeah.
So before that point, there were only one language.
Yes, the Adamic language.
But then in Genesis 10, where is it? 10:5. It says, from these the coats and people spread in their lands, each with their own language, by their clans and their nations.
It's probably not a chronological timeline. It's probably not, this year. It's kind of like this might be in Genesis. In Genesis chapter 1, you have the 7 days of creation, and then you have Genesis chapter 2, which is a closer examination of the sixth day. So it might be just giving more detail. Okay, so So the confusion of languages make people with the same language get together in a clan, and they separate from each other, thus fulfilling God's desire for them to spread all over the earth. Okay, what was similar to this in the New Testament? What happened that was similar to this in the? Yes.
After the Gospel of Acts.
Acts, yeah,
No,
Acts.
was it
No,
Acts?
Penna. Where are my charismatics? Where are my charismatics? No, Pentecost, right? So, this at Pentecost, the Holy Spirit arrives to the church, and the people begin speaking in new tongues. And so it's the same thing. People start different languages that they didn't know, but except what's the difference? They still understood each other. This is different from Tower of Babel. When the Holy Spirit went on the church, they spoke in new languages, but they could still understand each other. And this might have motivated the church to spread all over the world. Okay, so it's the same thing. God wants the people to spread all over the world, so that there's people all over the world. And then in Acts, God wants the church to go all over the world. Okay, so that people have a way to know about God. Okay. And by the way, what is happening to languages on Earth? Are we getting more languages or less languages?
Less languages.
Less languages, right? The number of languages on Earth is rapidly shrinking. Less and less languages, and soon there may be only a few. So a lot of people speak Chinese. A lot of people speak English. A lot of people speak Spanish. The city of Babel might point to the one world government, one language that we see in Revelation. So you might see a small example of that in the Tower of Babel. Okay. All right. Has anybody seen this before? This is called Enmerkar. Oh, this is a hard day for reading names today. Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata. Okay, this is a Sumerian tablet. So there is a king, Enmerkar, who is constructing temples, and there's a confusion of tongues. Okay, so this is another example of similarities. Okay, and we could have done this with Noah's flood, because there's a lot of examples of other stories like Noah's flood, but it was already an hour and 42 minutes of me talking, so I decided to be merciful. All right. The people does not mention what happened to the tower. However, both Josephus, writing for the Roman and Greek historian Abydenus, said it was blown down with a divine wind. Okay. Early Christian historian Eusebius is the one that preserved the Abydenus writings on the Tower of Babel. Okay, let me read this from. This is Eusebius on called the preparation of the gospel, preparation for the gospel. Okay, let me read this really quick. This is chapter 14, preparation of the gospel. Okay, again, whereas Moses wrote an account of the building of the tower and how from one language men passed into the confusion of many dialects, the author just mentioned in his work entitled Of Assyrian History bears the like testimony, speaking as follows. Okay, this is Abydenus, the Greek historian. But they are some who say that the men who first arose out of the earth, men puffed up by their strength and great stature, and proudly thinking that they were better than the gods. By the way, when we talk about God, we say God, but the Greeks at that time, when they talked about God, they always said gods. Okay. Raised a huge tower where Babylon now stands, and when they were already nearer to heaven, the winds came to the help of the gods and overthrew their structure upon them, the ruins of which were called Babylon, and being up to that time of one tongue, they received from the gods a confused language, and afterwards war arose between Chronos and Titan. Okay, this is Josephus, a Jewish historian writing for the Romans. And the place in which they built the tower is now called Babylon because of the confusion of what at first was clear in their language, for the Hebrews call confusion Babel. And this is the Sibyl. Sibyl is a reference to Greek oracles. Also mentions this tower and the diversity of languages among mankind, speaking thus, when all mankind were of one language, some built a very lofty tower, intending by it to mount up to heaven. But the gods sent winds against the tower and overthrew it, and gave to each man a particular language, and for this reason it came to pass that the city was called Babylon, and the plain which is called Shinar in the country of Babylonia is mentioned by Hestinius, who speaks this, but those of the priests who escaped took the sacred things of Zeus in Enyalios and came to Shinar in Babylonia. Afterwards they were scattered thence and everywhere formed their communities from speaking the same language and took possession of the land which each lighted upon. Okay, obviously we don't agree with these viewpoints, but these are a lot of Greek and Jewish writings that are confirming these things, and historians. Okay, by the way, that it's called Eusebius. That book was written in the 4th century, called Preparation for the Gospel. The intention of the book was Eusebius was trying to show the superiority of Christianity over the superstitions of pagan religion. Okay, and he also writes a lot of Noah's flood, if you're interested. Okay, so verse. I'm going to read through these really quick all the way to the end. Does anyone have anything else to say about the Tower of Babel?
But the superstition and religion, the pagan religion, wasn't it called Baal?
There is. I think Baal was he the Philistine god? Well, it was Baal was one of the. It was one of the pagan gods.
It was a pre-Jewish. Baal means ox, I believe.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go through the rest of this. Let me see. Okay. This is going to be the chronologically leading to Abraham. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. All right, these are Shem's descendants. These are the generations of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he fathered Arpachshad 2 years after the flood, and Shem lived after he fathered Arpachshad 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad had lived 35 years, he fathered Shelah, and Arpachshad lived after he fathered Shelah 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he fathered Eber, and Shelah lived after he fathered Eber 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered Peleg, and Eber lived after he fathered Peleg 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he fathered Reu, and Peleg lived after he fathered Reu 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu had lived 32 years, he fathered Serug, and Reu lived after he fathered Serug 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug had lived 30 years, he fathered Nahor, and Serug lived after he fathered Nahor 200 years and other sons and daughters. When Nahor had lived 29 years, he fathered Terah, and Nahor lived after he fathered Terah 119 years and had other sons and daughters. When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Okay. Let's see here. 27. Do we have anything interesting? Not really. Nahor is actually mentioned twice. Let's just keep going. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred in Ur of the Chaldeans. Okay, so the two main people we recognize are Abraham and who? Lot. Yeah. Lot. That's right. All right. And Abraham and Nahor took wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren and had no child. Okay. So then that concludes Genesis chapter 1 through 11. All right. So many see Genesis chapter 1 through 11 as the biggest stumbling block of people who want to read the Bible and become Christians. What does everyone think about Genesis chapter 1 through 11? Okay, bye-bye. What does everyone think about Genesis chapter 1 through 11?
I think it reveals the essence of human sin
Uh-huh.
and how it repeats,
Right.
and God's consistent salvation,
Yeah,
grace to his people. Yeah.
that's good. That's a good point, Mickey. Man keeps sinning and God keeps... And God doesn't just... It's both, though, right? He's also... He kind of judges, but he doesn't judge in an overly harsh way. He judges in a way of, like... Well, a lot of times, especially after Noah's flood, he's limiting. He's confusing languages, which makes it really hard for me in Taiwan, I will say. And he's also offering redemption, right?
Redemption?
Salvation.
So, I think what I see is sin
Mm-hmm.
for the people
Mm-hmm.
and the punishment from God.
Right. Yeah. There's punishment, but God could have. I mean, God doesn't have to. God could drown the world again, right? All right. Well, sorry, Canaan, Nimrod, round 2, but God has pity on man, right? He says, "Well, you've got original sin. You want to do evil. I'm going to have pity for you. I'm going to create government. I'm going to confuse your languages. I'm going to do things. I'm a righteous God, but I'm going to do these things. If someone is convicted of a crime, they go to jail, and this is part of God's blessing in Genesis chapter 9, I think. And so
Now you get
Annabelle's checking me is verifying.
God gives people opportunity to repent. He gave the miracle, the sign.
Right.
and that
Right.
much.
Good point. But I mean, it's a stumbling block for a lot of people because a lot of people scientifically they have problems with it scientifically, especially. I was reading. I was listening to a historian recently, and he was talking about when England had believed that man was created by God, and then Charles Darwin produced his work on evolution. 5 years, everyone pretty much rejected it, and then after 7 years, everyone accepted it, and all the theologians just, okay, God created using evolution. Let's write that into our theology somewhere. And it's not, it's 7 years. It's not very long to test a scientific theory. So a lot of people have a hard time with it because they think it's not scientific, and it's a stumbling block. Is Christianity true if science doesn't agree with it all the time? But and Genesis 1 through 11. That's hard. It's hard for. This was when I started reading the Bible. This is the first thing I went to because that was the biggest obstacle for me. You have creation. You have the fall. You have sons of God. You have Noah's flood. You have the Tower of Babel. These are hard things, and the rest of Genesis, the hardest thing is maybe Sodom and Gomorrah. The rest of Genesis is pretty easy compared to all the other things, especially. So I don't know.
I think chapter 11, verse 4, when God says, "Come, let us build." It's not. Sorry, not verse 4. Verse 6. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them."
Yeah.
And I think it's the same reason. The same. It coincides with with chapter 3, verse 21. I'm sorry. Verse 22. And the Lord God said, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out to
Yeah.
the tree of life and eat."
No. I think you're definitely right with that. I think there's just God notices. Hey, sinful people, they're just gonna take advantage of this, and yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I'm not going to make any communist references here. If this was during the Cold War, the church would be, in the West, would be, this is, communism, and Nimrod was just like Stalin, but